Hey, Monique.
Hi.
So I have a question for you.
Mm.
How good are you willing to let it get?
Well, I think pretty good, but I don't know now that you say that.
Well, I really loved when we did our podcast series on one of our favorite books, Burnout.
Yes.
And we're going to do it again on another one of
Yay.
our favorite books.
Okay,
And
let's
that
do it.
question is going to factor heavily into the content. So, you ready?
I am.
Let's go. Welcome to Heart and Soul, the podcast where we empower and inspire women to lead their best lives, harnessing the power of their hearts and souls. We are Mariah
And Monique.
your hosts and guides on this journey of self-discovery and personal growth.
In each episode, we will dive deep into topics that matter most to you, from self-love and confidence to career development, relationships, and everything in between. We believe that every woman has a unique strength and inner wisdom waiting to be unleashed.
Join us as we cover insightful heart and soul-centered topics and interview incredible women who've overcome challenges, chased their dreams, and found their true purpose. Through all of this, you will discover practical tips, strategies, and real-life stories to help you navigate life's twists and turns.
For whatever season of life you're in, this podcast is your safe space to explore, learn, grow, and possibly even laugh and cry with us. So grab your headphones, maybe your favorite drink, and we'll embark on this transformative journey together.
With heart, I'm Mariah.
And with soul, I'm Monique.
Well, welcome back, anyone listening to the Heart and Soul podcast.
Yes.
If you've been following us, you know that we run a mastermind group. And as part of our mastermind group, we use books that we have come to know and love and find really applicable to the work that we're doing with our clients, our members. And one of the books that we came to know through our own mastermind experience
Yes.
many moons ago was the one that we're going to do a series on now. And that is called The Big Leap. That is the book. And I always remember it because it has the fishbowl on it. And it has a little fish leaping from a small fishbowl to a big fishbowl. And when I first read this book with our mastermind group, I almost felt like it was so simple that I kept thinking, am I really getting it?
Yes.
But what I realized is that's the genius
Mhm.
of the book. And so what I have continued to read it and reread it and listen to it and re-listen to it since that first time. And then we have incorporated it into our mastermind group and it's become like a little Bible.
It is.
And so I wanted to, or we worked together to put together a series of podcasts that dive into the topics that are brought to life in the book
Mhm.
and to share about our own personal experiences in actually living this out and
Yes.
6 years of the big leap in our life. So I'm excited to unpack this and just create some interesting conversation. Anybody who's already listened to previous episodes, we did one on Einstein time. That is a concept from this book. So if you're
Yes.
thinking, I think I've heard of that book
Yes.
before in their conversation, that's where it came from. So you'll be revisited with that, one of my favorite topics again. So I'd love to start with Monique. If you would like to share
Mhm.
a little bit more about kind of the big concept from the book
Yeah. I
and
would
share a
love
little
to.
bit about what Gay Hendricks really frames out as the biggest issue that we face in blocking us from taking a big leap.
Absolutely. So I have so enjoyed reading this book now consecutively every year, 6 years, because there's always like a new, fresh take and spin depending on where I am at in my life. So I love that we incorporated it. And I would recommend to anyone who has read it and kind of like you said, brushed it aside, come back to it
Yes.
because it I don't know what it is about this book. It's really great.
It gets better the more you read
Yeah,
it.
I would agree.
And it's short. Like, it's a
Right.
little book. I mean, I don't know, 100 and under 200 pages,
Yes.
and you can consume it in little bits and pieces. Like,
Yes.
you could go back and just read one section or one chapter and be
Mhm.
like, "Oh my god, I
Yeah.
needed to hear that today."
That's exactly right. So the number one thing that he kind of opens the book with and says that we all really struggle with, and he builds the whole premise on the book on, is an upper limit belief problem, upper limit problem, right?
Yes.
We all have these upper limits. And what the heck does that mean? We have within ourselves beliefs, thoughts, and ideas that we can only do so much.
Mhm.
And beyond what we believe our abilities, and we're not even just talking physical abilities. I'm not going to run a marathon tomorrow, right? But if I trained, I could
You could
potentially,
do it.
right? But we're talking like usually in business or in your personal life, you believe, well, I could never find the person that I'm meant to be with the rest of my life. I could never start a business on my own, whatever the belief is. And he says that this really starts in childhood
Yep.
by our internal thermostat being set. And I love that he uses that analogy of an internal thermostat because it's such
Yeah.
a great visual for all of us. We all know we can go up to the thermostat. What if your thermostat, it's the dead of winter, only goes up to 60 degrees and you're like, "Dang, I would love it to be 62." I mean, that's cold, right? But
Yeah.
like, what if you wanted it to do that, but it just wouldn't? And then you realized I have actually the power and the control. I can turn it up and be
Yeah.
warmer, but I've been suffering here being cold my whole life. That to me is like such a beautiful image and analogy that he puts into the book of that's easy and tangible, just like you get that, right?
Yep.
You have been self-imposing these upper limits, these upper beliefs on yourself by not just walking up to the thermostat and like adjusting the dial when you think you can't or you think it's as far up as it will go.
I love that analogy too, and I feel like that every time I reread the book, I just love being able to visualize that,
Yes.
and the fact that this upper limit comes and manifests in life through many different emotions,
Mhm.
reactions, anywhere from shame, anger,
Yes.
anxiety, depression,
Worry.
worry is part of your, upper limiting problem,
Yeah.
essentially.
Right.
How you interact in the world it's sort of that whole, like, get out of your own way, right?
Yeah.
I mean, thinking about the thermostat dial, like, you have the capability to
Yes.
change this,
Right.
but we limit ourselves because we have some pre-programmed perception from early childhood about what we're capable of or what's possible in our life.
Right.
And I can think back, like, eh, I can think over my life of different times when I've confronted this upper limit,
Uh-huh.
and had I chose to not push past it, how that could have turned out, and I realized, like, I suddenly stopped and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, things would be very different if I hadn't somehow figured that out when I was a little bit younger." But it's not something that you stop confronting because there's
Mhm.
really no limit, like,
Right.
you're always going to hit a new upper limit. Like, just when you think that
Yeah.
you've done everything you could do, if you keep living forward in joy, and we'll talk about how do you push through your upper
Yes.
limit
Yes.
problem, you can go to the next step. So I think that's uh, it's helpful to look back
Yes.
and think about these times. So I thought it'd be useful for anybody
Mhm.
listening if we could share like an upper limiting situation that we went through. And again, I can face these every single day
Right.
and we do.
Right.
But there are some large scale upper limiting experiences where you can kind of really see it and go, oh, yeah, like a different choice in that situation would have resulted completely different in your life.
Right. And I do think that in the book it talks about or maybe it just outlines that following your upper limit and pushing beyond it to actually finding your feeling of feeling good. And when I was reading about that, it you helped me remind you reminded me and helped me remember of a point in my life where I really traced my feelings. So I was going through a divorce and not feeling good, right? I was switching careers and I was scared. I wanted to switch a career, but I didn't know what to do. I was not trained in this necessarily, so I wasn't trained as a coach. I thought I probably had a natural inclination to it, but I was not like ready to do it. And then on top of that, just going through all of the emotional turmoil, I really wanted to follow something that helped me feel good. So I built a business based on what was helping me feel good. I felt really compelled, passionate. I could do it all day. I loved everything about it. And while it seemed like, wow, she's going to go from commercial real estate to life coach, spiritual coach, even more than just life coach to spiritual coaching, to me it was like I literally cringed when I'd have to go into the real estate firm. Now, for those of you, I love real estate. I've been in real estate for a really long time. It's not that. It was more about like the day-to-day grind. I was really struggling with running like an office, having employees. You just sometimes you get to the point where you're like, meh, do I have it feels like Groundhog
It's
Day.
not bringing you joy.
No, I just was not
It's
feeling,
dreadful.
yes, it did not feel good in my body. So then I start researching and started, coaching people, and I was so excited. I could have done it. I still love doing it all day long. I feel it gives me more energy than like when I start my day. At the end of the day, I'm like, "Yes, that was awesome. I got to, like meet amazing people. I got to talk to amazing clients. I got to help them brainstorm and like work through things." It just felt so good to feel um like useful in that way, and it felt like it used a lot of my wisdom I already had.
Yeah.
Long story. How about you? Would you give us an example of a time like that that worked for you?
Yeah, so I look back to, summer 2020, and I had reached a real upper limit in my career,
Mm,
in my business.
yes.
I Before, the pandemic, shutdown happened, which had a dramatic effect on my business, I had started feeling very burnt out and was really struggling with, like, where do I go from here? Like, I could feel the ceiling on my head, and I was, like, pushing up against the ceiling, and I felt like didn't have the tools, I didn't know where to go, I
Yeah.
didn't know what to do to turn it around, and not to turn it around, it was doing great, but to turn around the way I felt about it, right?
Mhm.
And there's something both Monique just shared and I'll share, you'll pick up some words in this that we're gonna hear about in a minute when we talk about how to break through your upper limit,
Mhm.
but newsflash, it has to do with feelings and joy and being willing to let something bring joy to your life. So, as I was kind of walking through it, thankfully, I got a pause.
Yeah, we all did.
I got a pause, and I had time to reflect on what I was doing, what within that, like, had to go, what I
Right.
never wanted to do again. I didn't wanna work till 9 p.m. every night of the week
And
and
weekends.
not end weekends and never
Yes.
see my kids and never get to cook a meal, and, like, I was working around the clock, so I realized when I wasn't doing that all the time that I hadn't want to go back to that, right?
Mhm.
So, okay, well, it would bring me more joy to be able to have a more balanced schedule, to be able to have more boundaries around my personal time. Like, my personal life brings me joy. Imagine that, like, I realized it and that I've been missing out on it for so long. And then I had the opportunity to think about within my business, what are the parts that the idea of building them brought me a lot of joy.
And how could you probably thought about how can I foster this long term?
I started thinking about over time, what will I continue to do
Mhm.
within this business that I'm
Okay.
excited about and will bring me joy. So because I had the time, I was able to start restructuring, literally changing the way that my business ran,
Right.
compartmentalizing things that brought other people more joy than they brought me, and empowering them to do those roles, and thinking about my own role within the company in terms of the things that I wanted to be doing. And through that step by step rebuilding, I found that the end result was I mean, I had pushed to the next level of business. Like, all of a sudden the ceiling wasn't pressing down on my head, and I was excited about going forward with the
Mhm.
next goals. And consistently have hit that time and time again in the same way. Like, anytime I feel that ceiling pressing down, I have to stop and say, what am I doing now that isn't bringing me the next level of joy and abundance and love in my life? And if I tune into that, the next thing I know, I'm at the next level. I've gone past the upper limit. So, again, what's a common thread in our two stories is following the joy
Yes.
and recognizing that if you do that, you will naturally push through the limit. And that's what's kind of crazy and like hard concept within the book to really get. It's like
Yes.
you don't have to do something other than the things that bring you joy.
Right.
And naturally, the universe, the world, whatever, will begin to open up and align itself around you passing to the next, through
Right.
that limit onto the next thing that you want to be doing.
Yeah, and the key indicators are you're kind of unaligned with joy, unaligned with happiness, and you're more aligned with like the meh that I felt, or like just, oh, I just couldn't stand it anymore. Right.
Well, really, everything is relative to where you are at any point and place in time.
Right.
But what isn't relative is your willingness to live the life you want
Right.
and live in joy.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into that a little bit
Yes.
because in the book, Gay
Mm-hmm.
Hendricks has three main questions
Yes.
that he has somebody ask themselves as he's starting to explain this concept to them. So, Monique, will you sort of share with us
Yes.
what are those three questions?
Yes. So the first one is, am I willing to increase the amount of time every day that I feel good inside?
I
I
mean,
mean, you on like the get-go, you think yes, but really when you look at behaviors of people or thoughts of people, they're usually focusing on the problems
yep.
and they're trying to solve problems constantly, right? Which is, I feel like, good, right? You want to constantly evolve and get better, but when you focus on the good you feel inside, hmm,
How does that shift? How
mhm.
does that shift your focus, your behavior,
Yes.
and how your attention is flowing towards the things that are making you feel good
Yes.
and naturally moving you beyond the thing that's holding you back.
Right.
An upper limit is essentially you're stuck. You're
Yes.
stuck, and to push through the stuckness, you need to lean into what makes you feel good.
Absolutely. Yes. Am I willing, question number
Okay.
2, to increase the amount of time that my whole life goes well? I will say hell yes, but my schedule does not show it that way, right?
Mhm.
Because things happen that don't go well in a day. So, wow, what's in the way? I'm curious.
Yeah. I mean, that's what the question asks. It's like, yeah, I'd like to feel better and, feel good inside every day. Yeah,
And
yeah,
have more
yeah. Okay.
time and
Okay, well, how much of my life would I prefer I was in that mindset versus otherwise? Well, when you really think about it, like, who answers no to that
right.
question? Like, but yet we do things all the time
They're contradictory.
that are indicators of no,
Yes.
you don't want to feel good.
Right.
Obviously, the decisions that you're making, the path that you're taking is not in pursuit of the good.
Right.
It's the drudgery, it's the dread,
Yes.
it's doing things because you feel you need to do them or
Obligation,
an
right.
obligation, like,
Right.
they're not coming out of that place that it truly
Well, and I
is
think
making you feel
the
good.
answer is yes, but I don't know if everyone wants to do the work or the introspective self-reflection to get to the point where they have to then incorporate some changes
So
to
then you stay
get
stuck,
there, right? So that, yes, that's exactly right. I mean, that's so true of almost everything.
and you walk around and you think about people and you can picture who looks like they have, like, a piece of concrete on their head,
Yeah. Oh my
right?
gosh,
Like,
concrete on their head.
being held
That's a
down.
visual.
I know, think about it. Or their thermostat is just set at
Yes, and
60.
they're like
They're
cold or
freaking
hot or
freezing.
whatever all the time, right?
Yeah. Like,
Yeah,
think about that. Like, the people in your life that are like, they're not living with the the concrete holding them down,
right,
right? That's just not how they live, no matter what they're doing.
right.
It doesn't matter. They could be living in a cardboard box, but in their mind,
They're
they're not
living,
held
yeah,
back. Like,
right.
this is
They're free.
they're
They're living
joyful
in
and they're
cardboard,
free.
but they're
Like,
free.
it's a mindset than
Yes,
it is like an actual practical application, although it does spill over into every piece of your life.
agreed. It's fundamental. The last question is, am I willing to feel good and have my life go well all the time? I mean, yes, but
I mean, saying yes is
yes.
truly like
First
one of the
step.
hardest
Yes.
and most important steps that you can take towards actually beginning to dissolve the upper limit problem.
Right.
Like, just really thinking about that concept and saying, "Yes, that is my goal and my focus." You immediately can switch into
Yeah.
moving beyond
I
that
believe
limit.
probably with these, the majority of us will answer yes, but I believe it takes radical internal honesty to
Yes.
get to the reasons why you're not feeling that way all the time or living that way all the time.
Well, because if you think about that your thermostat was set in early childhood,
Yes.
you probably need to be peeling back the layers of what set that thermostat. Did you grow up in a household where you were told you were never going to amount to anything?
Mhm.
Well, that could do it. That's going to definitely have you hitting that upper limit all the time. Like,
Right.
or did you suffer a trauma at some point along the
Mhm.
way that has caused fear or anxiety
Yes.
that you can't get past? Like,
Right.
so part of saying yes is saying yes to peeling back the layers
I love the way you said that.
of what caused me to think that this is as hard as it can go for me.
Right.
Like, I can't get it any warmer up in here. Like, that's really
So true.
the question, and that does take work. That does take a radical self change to
Mhm.
say, "Yeah, I'm ready and willing to do the work to move the temperature up." But the cool thing that I've experienced with this is how quickly it starts to happen.
Oh, so true.
It's overnight, it's immediate, and then all of a sudden you have the motivation to
Mhm.
keep going.
Mhm.
You feel the rewards
Mhm.
immediately.
And I would say the key indicators, as we've mentioned before, would be the emotional responses or the emotional reactions when you notice, yes, I want to live the best life I can possibly live and do the things and have more time, but then I'm worried or I'm
Yep.
stressed or,
And when that happens, so you make that decision, right? Yeah, yes, I want all those things.
yes,
And then I hear you saying, "Oh, I'm so worried about this and I couldn't possibly get it. I can't know how this is
right.
going to happen." You're upper limiting yourself.
Hmm.
We're really good at calling each other out on things like
Yes.
that and being able to say within ourselves, "Oh, hello there, friend, upper limit problem or foe, I should say. I see you. I'm I'm not going to let that noise stop me."
Right.
Because it comes through as noise, essentially, and some of the, uh, key indicators or
Yes.
things that happen that
Please
are
share.
indicators of,
Yeah.
like, you're hitting this
Hmm.
limit, so
Hmm.
worry and anxiety,
Yeah.
unnecessary worry about something that is out of your
Well,
control.
worries about something in the future a lot of times too. Like, what's the point? It's not even here.
Yeah,
Right.
or, criticism, like,
Mm.
really just being unable to either give or accept, like, giving it
And we've
to
done
the
this.
point
We've
or
talked about this
accepting it.
before,
Yep,
right?
so criticism, blame.
Mm.
Like, if you're blaming everybody else for the way your life is going,
Yeah.
that's just your way of holding your upper limit in
Or even
place.
situations like I got a raw deal in life or whatever.
Yeah, it's holding you back,
Hmm.
because you're not taking your own accountability in the
Makes
situation.
sense.
Squabbling. I thought squabbling is a really
Ooh.
interesting one. So, like, picking a fight
Ah.
is an upper limiting behavior. Like, rather than push through a disagreement to a better place, you're just picking a fight. You're squabbling. Like,
Right.
you're essentially holding yourself where you're at by
You're like self-sabotaging.
self-sabotage is a big word in
Yes.
this. Yes, it's like just when things are think about it, like just when things are going well, a fight blows up,
Right.
like between you and,
I
your
love that this is
friend.
an upper limit belief because honestly, like in relationships, we think about it for work, right? Like,
Yeah.
I can never get this job because I'm whatever. But it's true of relationships. We're the foundation of everything, our relationships,
Mhm.
right? So you can apply this book in so many ways.
Another interesting one is, deflecting compliments
Mm.
or good things. So, like, somebody pays you a compliment and your first thing is, "Oh, no, I don't feel that I look
Right.
good today," or whatever, and watch this in yourself because it's amazing how you can you can be operating in this, you know, good headspace, crushing through upper limits, but find yourself deflecting compliments. I think I did it
Mhm.
earlier today. I came in
Mhm.
and you're like, "Oh, you look great today." I'm like, "Oh, it's fine. No, I don't."
Yes.
But that deflecting the compliment versus accepting it
Mhm.
is upper limiting you
Mhm.
from living into this place of joy and feeling good. Because if I just accepted the compliment from you that for whatever reason I look good,
Yes.
then I would feel good. And
Right.
I would think, Oh, I feel good. So I work on that all the time too, or even just like people wanting to help you. We upper limit ourselves by not accepting help.
Right.
Other people want to help us,
Seen.
and we're like,
I'm
no,
so
I'm
seen.
fine. I don't need any help.
Right.
Well, guess what? You allowing that person to help you might be the very thing that pushes you through the upper limit to
Yes.
the next phase,
I
the
mean, I
next
have so
level.
many examples over the last month where I got this. I'm going to take care of this all on my own. And then I literally share whatever I'm experiencing with people. And then I gain new knowledge that expands my awareness around whatever I'm going through to give me a better perspective versus just my perspective.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Accepting help doesn't mean weakness or vulnerability.
Right.
It means opening yourself up to the world of somebody else, which might be just what you needed.
Hmm.
And I feel like people all the time, that's one of the number one ways women upper limit themselves
Interesting.
is not knowing how to ask for or accept help, not knowing how to ask for or accept a compliment in a relationship, picking a fight, squabbling with your partner, rather than deciding you want to have the best relationship you possibly could. So how good are we willing to let it get?
Yeah, I
Like
love that.
what rather than squabbling, like what do we have fun doing?
Right.
I think about that with my husband all the time. Like, what brings us joy? Let's do more of that.
That's
Right?
amazing.
Because, yeah,
Yes.
housework doesn't really bring joy. But if we could find something that does, and we can make that a routine or part of our life or something we're aspiring or working towards, I mean, then the good things are going to keep happening.
Right.
Like traveling, that's it for us. Like, what brings us joy. So, as long as we have a good trip on the calendar, like, we're A OK.
I love that.
Yeah. So, I feel like this concept, again, really hard to get at first. And
Hmm.
even listening to this, you're like probably thinking, these, what are they talking about? It sounds so woo
Well,
woo
then
and
read the book.
high level. But I couldn't say more to anyone. It's not just about business. Like this is just about life.
Life,
It's
yes.
very helpful in business because as you're growing a company, or
Or trying to
or
climb
trying
the
to climb a
ladder.
ladder in a
Mhm.
corporate setting or in your profession, this is super helpful, but it is not at all a business book.
Right.
It's a life book.
Yes.
And that's why I would encourage anyone just to read this and to read it and then reread it because every time you're going to learn something new about how to continue to move forward with this positive, joy-filled energy
Love it.
versus all the other fun, not so fun stuff like shame and blame and anxiety and worry and, all that jazz.
I'm tired of that. Let's just pitch that out the door.
So our question or thought for our listeners is that over the next week in between episodes as
Yes.
you've listened to
Come back and
this,
hear more about the book.
yeah, you're waiting for episode 2 of this series, to be listening within yourself and watching for when you find yourself hitting an upper limit in your life.
Yes.
When do you feel like there's suddenly a block of concrete on your head or your internal temperature is stuck?
Can't do that. No, I don't wanna do that. And not no out of like, I'm overcommitted, but no because like I just literally don't think I can do the thing, right?
Yeah, or you're giving up opportunity or you're deflecting a compliment or you're
Mhm.
picking a fight. Like how are you self-sabotaging something good from coming into your life?
Right.
Watch for that. See how often that happens. Sit with it. And when we come back in our next episode, we'll dive more into how to actually make that big leap, like to go from that place of a small fishbowl to the next size fishbowl.
That fish looks like
So
it can really
if
jump.
you're looking for the book, you'll know you found the right one because you'll see the fish on the cover. So yeah, well, I love talking about this book, and I can't wait for our next episode.
Yes.
So go out and get it in between listening, and we are excited to continue talking about it this next time. Cheers, friends. You've just finished another episode of the Heart and Soul podcast. We hope that you've enjoyed the show, and if you've loved it, we would love if you'd leave us a 5-star review on whatever platform you're listening. You can find links to leave that review in the show notes, where you'll also find other resources that we reference on our show. And if you think a friend could find value in today's episode or any future episodes, please share this episode with them on social media. This is one of the only ways the podcast can organically grow, and we just can't wait to connect with you and all of your besties. You can also find Monique and I on our many social media platforms or our websites, and we're going to leave links to those in the show notes as well. Thank you for listening. We look forward to sharing our hearts and souls with you again next time. With heart, I'm Mariah.
And with soul, I'm Monique.